Have you ever had one of those days where you just woke up on the wrong side of the bed and for whatever reason you see yourself in the mirror and you just start picking apart everything about the way you look for seemingly no reason? Me too. It's happened to a lot of us. It's very common. And today we're going to talk about why it happens and what you can do about it. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Danny Taylor, co-owner of VeganProteins Online Coaching. And today we're going to be talking about emotional reasoning and logical reasoning. Let's get into it. A quick word on the way that we perceive our bodies. Body image is a complex and multifaceted concept that is influenced by a lot of different factors, including societal standards, your own personal experiences and upbringings, and a lot of your psychological states. So many people struggle to actually see their bodies clearly due to a lot of these influences, which lead to very distorted perceptions. This is actually well documented in the psychological research. So body dysmorphia disorder, or BDD, is a mental health condition where someone spends a lot of time worrying about what they perceive as flaws in their appearance, whether that's their face or their body. The flaws are often like very small things or completely unnoticeable to others. It's kind of like looking at a beautiful sunset, but being colorblind. I imagine BDD is probably quite a bit like that. Approximately 3% of people in the United States have clinical BDD. So that means it can be clinically diagnosed because you meet a certain criteria. 3%. That doesn't sound like it's very many people, but in a fitness setting, that number is much higher. A study in 2019 by Ornella Carrazza studied 1,711 fitness enthusiasts in the Netherlands and the UK. And what they found was that 38.5% of the participants were at risk of BDD. And that number was actually 47.2% in women. So if you're watching this video, there is a good chance you might fall into a category of people who cannot actually see their bodies accurately. The Tigman study in 2004 also found that people who are in a negative emotional state, like depression or anxiety, are much more likely to have negative body image at that time. And I have noticed that in so many of my clients. If they're having a bad day, they think they look like trash. So it's important to remember the next time you're looking at your body and thinking negatively about it, you may very well not be seeing what is actually there. It's a common experience. No matter how hard we try, those thoughts just keep coming back. This is where knowing the difference between logical reasoning and emotional reasoning is really going to help. So logical reasoning is all about using critical thinking, facts, and evidence to make decisions, whereas emotional reasoning is when we make decisions based on the way we're currently feeling. Both types of reasoning are important, but if we lean too much on emotional reasoning, it can often mess with the perception of our bodies and our progress. When it comes to fitness, emotional reasoning might make you feel discouraged when you don't see immediate results, even if you are actually making significant progress. Logical reasoning, however, pushes you to recognize that progress takes time and is measured in small, consistent steps. It helps to see beyond temporary feelings and focus on long-term achievements. So emotional reasoning says, I look exactly the same as I did on day one. Why do I even bother with this? Logical reasoning says, I've stuck to my workout plan for a month and I'm lifting more weight than I did when I started. So let's get back to logical reasoning versus emotional reasoning. So logical reasoning, this is usually using facts and evidence, stuff you can quantify in order to analyze a situation calmly and rationally. So it's about looking at concrete data, like tracking your workouts and how much you're lifting, noting improvements, body measurements, and just understanding that plateaus are a natural part of any fitness journey. Logical reasoning, while powerful, does have its drawbacks. So it can often overlook the fact that we are human beings full of complexity with our different emotions and experiences. So it tends to simplify otherwise multifaceted issues into just black and white binary choices, which can be limiting when you are addressing something as personal and nuanced as your own body image and fitness journey. Another limitation of logical reasoning is that its reliance on objective data and empirical evidence can be beneficial in a lot of contexts, But it can also dismiss subjective experiences and personal narratives. So how did you actually feel in this situation? Does it line up with the data? And does it matter? And that's really the question you have to be able to ask yourself, is whether or not the data reflects how you felt and determine what that means. We'll get to it. Additionally, logical reasoning may not account for different factors that drive motivation. So while it can identify the most efficient path to a fitness goal, it might not consider what will actually keep someone motivated and engaged over the long term. On the other hand, emotional reasoning is when your emotions dictate your reality. You believe your emotions to be fact. So for instance, you might feel like you're not making progress because you're frustrated or you're disappointed, even though the evidence actually shows otherwise. You're seeing progress on the scale, in your clothes, in the compliments that you're getting from other people, but you're still feeling like you're not moving forward at all. Emotional reasoning often leads to distorted perceptions of reality. So when it comes to body image, this means that people might see themselves as less attractive or less fit than they actually are. These distorted perceptions can be really difficult to correct because they are based on feelings rather than facts. And how can feelings be wrong? Like if you are having an emotion, that it's a real emotion, you are really feeling that way, but that doesn't mean that that emotion is reality. The reality is you're feeling that emotion, not that that emotion is outside of your body in reality. Does that make sense? Another limitation of emotional reasoning is that it can perpetuate negative self-talk. If someone is feeling ugly, they might constantly tell themselves that they're not good enough, which can lead to a cycle of low self-esteem and poor body image. So this negative self-talk can be really damaging and an incredibly difficult habit to break. It can also make people a lot more susceptible to external influences. So things that you see in media or on social media, ideal bodies that you see everywhere. When emotions are the primary lens through which someone views their body, they are more likely to compare themselves unfavorably to these often unrealistic standards, just making feelings of inadequacy much worse. So it can also hinder progress in a fitness journey. If someone is feeling discouraged by what they perceive as a lack of immediate results, they might very well give up on their fitness goals way earlier than they should even be considering that. This is because their emotions are telling them that their efforts are futile, even if logically they know that fitness progress takes time. Emotional reasoning can also lead to unhealthy behaviors like extreme dieting or over-exercising in a sort of panicky response to quickly change your body to match your emotional expectations. And as we all know, these things can be harmful and counterproductive and lead to both physical and mental health issues. And lastly, emotional reasoning can really create a feeling of hopelessness. If someone feels like they're never going to achieve the body that they want, they might stop trying altogether. This sense of hopelessness can be a huge barrier to both mental well-being and physical health. So emotional reasoning, I just painted it as pretty bad, but it is actually not always bad. It's just a process where you interpret your experiences based on your emotions. So while it can, like I just described, sometimes lead to some pretty distorted thinking, it also does play a very important role in how we connect with our feelings and understand our emotional states, which do matter. And when it comes to your body image, emotional reasoning can help us just recognize and address our emotional needs. It can help motivate us to pursue various goals that align with the kind of life we want to live and person we want to be. So what does the research say about logical reasoning versus emotional reasoning? Research on the impact of logical versus emotional reasoning on body image and fitness is not incredibly well studied, shocking to no one, I'm sure. But there are a few studies that do show us some valuable insight. One study published in the journal Body Image found that individuals that engage in more logical reasoning about their bodies tend to have a more stable and positive body image compared to those who rely heavily on emotional reasoning. This makes sense based on everything we've said so far. So this study suggests that logical reasoning can act as like a buffer against the negative impacts of societal pressures and external factors. Another study published in the Journal of Health Psychology examined the role of cognitive behavioral therapy, which is when you try to change your thoughts in order to change your feelings and in turn your actions, and they all connect to each other. So they studied the role of cognitive behavioral strategies, which are grounded in logical reasoning, in improving body image among young adults. The findings indicated that the participants who employed logical reasoning techniques, such as challenging irrational thoughts and focusing on factual evidence, experienced significantly more improvements in body satisfaction and a big reduction in body dysmorphia. Emotional reasoning, on the other hand, has been linked to poorer body image outcomes. Research in the International Journal of Eating Disorders found that individuals who frequently use emotional reasoning, which, interpreting your feelings as proof of reality, are way more likely to experience body dissatisfaction and engage in unhealthy eating behaviors. This suggests that emotional reasoning can exacerbate negative body image and actually slow down your progress. But isn't ignoring your emotions bad? Yes, it is. And I don't recommend that you stuff your emotions away because they will come back to haunt you later when left undealt with. But it is important to not let them run the show. One effective way to incorporate emotional reasoning with your logical reasoning is to start by acknowledging your emotions without letting them dictate your actions. Recognize how you feel about your body, but use logical reasoning to analyze whether these feelings are based on facts or just your own perceptions. This is going to help you validate your emotions, which is very important, while still making rational decisions. So how do you stop spiraling about your body? Number 1, have emotional check-ins. Make it a habit to pause and assess your feelings. Try and identify whether your thoughts are driven by logical reasoning or emotional reasoning. Recognizing the source can help you approach the situation with a more balanced perspective. When you find yourself spiraling, take a second to breathe and analyze the evidence behind your thoughts. Are the feelings based on subjective emotions, or do they stem from objective facts? This practice provides a lot of clarity and can help prevent you from making hasty emotional decisions that you may very well regret later. Number 2, challenge your thoughts. Ask yourself if these automatic thoughts are fair and accurate. This method can help you distinguish between rational concerns and cognitive biases that are probably distorting your view. Engaging in mindfulness activities like meditation or journaling, all things you've heard us talk about before, can absolutely enhance your ability to balance logical and emotional reasoning. These practices make for better self-awareness, emotional regulation, and that's going to make it easier to identify when emotions are influencing your thoughts. It's really important to remember that experiencing emotions, even crappy ones, is a natural and integral part of being human. Welcome to the club. There are 7 billion of us. The goal is not to suppress those emotions, but rather to kind of create a good dialogue between your logical mind and your more emotional experiences. This balance is going to lead to better decision-making and just a better outlook on your body. Number 3, take a zoomed out view. So one thing I like to do when I start spiraling about anything really is to try to zoom out, like literally imagine a camera zooming out away from me, away from my house, away from my neighborhood, away from my city, my state, my country, out of Earth, all the way out into outer space, and kind of just like imagine that I'm looking at the whole perceived problem from that far away. And it really just helps to get that feeling of taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture. If you consider the context of the problem, you might realize, like, are you jumping to conclusions based on a temporary setback or an emotional response? This is usually where logical reasoning has to take over. But by evaluating the situation from that zoomed out perspective, you can usually gain a more rational understanding, and it really puts the problem that you're having in perspective. So always remember, the brain has a natural tendency to make sense of information, but the brain is also hardwired to believe negative biases. So recognizing that can help you correct your course. Number 4, remember that emotions are temporary. Emotions come and go like clouds passing by or the changing of the weather. If we let them guide our reasoning too much, we are pretty easily going to end up spiraling into negative thoughts about our bodies and our fitness journey. So logical reasoning grounds us. It encourages us to focus on what is actually evident, what we know to be true. This doesn't mean ignoring how you feel, but it is about finding a balance. Although uncomfortable, negative emotions will pass. They may come back again, but there will be moments where they come and go. I have many clients One day they look at themselves in the mirror and they think they look fantastic. And then the next day they have a bad day and all of a sudden they think they look terrible. Now, the chances that they look very different in a 24-hour period is basically zero. So when that situation arises, I have to remind them it's not actually what's going on. It has entirely to do with the emotions that you're experiencing on that day and you're taking it out on your body. Number 5, use logic to assess your progress. So this is very important that you track any measurable outcomes that you can. So tracking your strength gains, your nutrition intake, your body measurements, your moods even, your sleep, your steps, tracking anything that is important to you can really help you have a more balanced approach and stay motivated, appreciate your efforts, see what you've actually been doing so that when those negative emotions come in, you have something to fact check it with. Whenever you notice a negative thought creeping in, ask yourself a few questions. Is there evidence to support this thought? Am I considering all the facts or just the ones that fit my current mood? Is this thought based on logical or emotional reasoning? What would I say to a friend who had this thought? I think when you ask yourself those questions, it really helps you check yourself to see if you're being reasonable or not. Number 6, I think, analyze setbacks rationally. When you face a setback, and you will face a setback, take a step back from the situation to look at everything as a whole. Ask yourself what factors contributed to the setback. Were there external circumstances beyond your control? Did you adhere to the program? Did you stick to your regular routine? Logical reasoning can help you break down the situation objectively, and this allows you to see the setbacks as an opportunity for growth rather than your failure. So when you identify what actually went wrong factually, you can make informed adjustments to your plan. Number 7, fact check by seeking external feedback. While internal reflection is absolutely critical and should be the first step all the times, it can sometimes be clouded by our own biases. So seeking external feedback is a practical way to get a more balanced view. So you have to be careful about who you seek external feedback from. You want to make sure that these are trusted friends, family, or even professionals like a coach. You're inviting perspectives into your world that you might not have considered. That external feedback can give you a more objective look at your progress and help you separate emotional reactions from more logical assessments. It helps you build a more accurate self-image and improve your decision-making skills regarding your own fitness journey. But this also gives a lot of power to somebody else. You have to make sure that is somebody that is like a healthy person to have in your life, because if you ask the wrong person, this can absolutely do more harm than good. So by regularly challenging your negative thoughts, you're going to start to notice patterns and biases in your own thinking. This is really hard, and you might be shocked how often these types of thoughts come up throughout your day when you first start doing this. But practice is key. The more you do it, the easier it gets to recognize and change those automatic thoughts. And practice self-compassion. Your emotions are going to start to take over from time to time, and when that happens, it is essential to recognize it and try to, right your ship as best you can. So pay attention to the thought patterns. Are you focusing on negative outcomes? Are you exaggerating potential failures? This kind of negativity is going to really warp the way you see the world, whereas more logical reasoning helps counteract it by offering a more structured approach. So instead of thinking, I'll never reach my goals, actually look at the facts. Are you consistent with your training? Are you consistent with your nutrition? Are you actually tracking your progress, or are you going on your gut feeling of if you've made progress or not that day? All right, everybody. So I want to hear how you combat when those emotions start to creep in and those negative emotional thoughts start to feel like a fact. Is there anything that you have tried that you have found to be particularly helpful? I love it when we can help each other out in the comments. So go ahead and leave one of those down below. If you struggle with this, feel free to reach out to us. We coach folks one-on-one to reach particular physique, fat loss, muscle building goals that they have. But one of the main things that we do, in addition to obviously training and nutrition, is we focus on mindset heavily, because somebody could be making great progress, but if they struggle with this negative thinking and believing that it's fact because they feel a certain way, they may halt their progress right there and just quit. So it's one of the things that we focus on a lot, is pointing out the facts of how things are going and helping people reframe things in a more healthy way so that they can reach their goals more efficiently and be happier along the way. So if that's something you're interested in, all the links are down below. Fill out a coaching application and we can see if we would be a good fit for one another. If you liked the video, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, hit the bell, all the things I'm supposed to tell you to do at the end of a YouTube video, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.